Welcome to Worship Leader Hangout, where we talk about many aspects of leading worship and leading a worship team. And today I'm going to give you guys 3 tips to make your stage look so much cleaner and so much better. Check this out. So what's the point of having a clean stage? I mean, you're playing music, people know there's cables, they're running out of instruments, they're running out of lighting, they're running out of, everywhere. Everywhere you look on a stage, sometimes there's cables. I wish everything was wireless, that would just be amazing. But it's not, and most of us have this issue where we're gonna have cables on our stage, and it's just a way of life. So, we can make this look better, and it's not just cables. There's actually a couple other things I want to talk to you guys about that'll help you. So number 1, the keyboard stand. Come on, everybody has a testimony of how bad keyboard stands can look, or how bad keyboards can look when they're placed on a stand and you just start plugging in cables everywhere. The sustain pedal and the power cable, and you might run stereo, so you have 2 outs on your keyboard. You might run MIDI to that keyboard. Maybe you got a loop setup, Ableton, something else. We can have up to like 10-ish cables running out of our keyboard, maybe less sometimes, maybe just 3 for a lot of you. And they're so spaced out, you can't take them one direction. It's like the power cables are all the way on this side, and then all the way on the other side you have your 1/4-inch input. So let's clean this up. I want to show you guys how to set up your keyboard and how to run those cables along your stand or along whatever that you sit your keyboard on, and make this look so much cleaner and so much more professional. So all you do is take one of these. What is this? Well, this is, you've seen these actually come on a lot of cables. A lot of cable companies will give you one of these to wrap up the cable with, just like this, when you're done using it, and that's it. You know, and nobody really thinks of these any differently than just being on a cable. But if you put these along each cable, or maybe each section of cables that's coming out of your keyboard, you can actually wrap this thing, attach it to the cable itself, and then wrap it around the keyboard stand. If you need a couple of them, maybe your stand is a lot larger, and you can weave another one in together, and now you have a longer one of these to wrap around your keyboard stand. It just looks so much more professional. Now, a lot of people use gaff tape, and that's great, but gaff tape gets sticky over time. So when you're pulling off that gaff tape, maybe you need to replace a cable, maybe you want to move the entire setup somewhere else, and you pull off gaff tape, there's going to be a nice sticky residue if you leave the gaff tape there for a long time. Of course, gaff tape is awesome for short-term uses. Put the gaff tape on, take it off, no sticky residue. But I have had experience with this stuff just sticking. I mean, yeah, you can get it off easily, but there's a residue that's left over. You don't really want to use it over again. It doesn't stick that well, so you just grab a new piece. So over time, it can be a lot more expensive than just buying a few of these. Now, let me show you this real quick. How do you get a bunch of these? Well, obviously you can go online and purchase these in bulk. I mean, they come in a little package. Actually, I have the package right here. I took it out to show you guys, but they're just reusable cable tie. Again, you can use these in any situation where there's a cable and something to wrap that cable to keep it nice and tidy, instead of using a gaff tape. Next up, hiding your cables or gaff taping them to the floor or to the stage. This is huge. You don't want cables hanging out everywhere. It's just not a professional look. You wanna hide them or get them into place. Just like we talked about with the keyboard, you want to grab those cables together and wrap something around it, whether it's one of these like we just talked about, or gaff tape, or zip ties. If it's something that's going to be in place for a very long time, yeah, use zip ties. It's clean, it's easy, it's very tight, it's not going to come apart. But if it's something that you're going to pull off and on multiple times throughout however long you have your setup, then maybe one of these is your best bet. Or if it's something a lot more temporary, then use gaff tape. Or if it's on the floor, of course you got to use gaff tape regardless. The best way to do this is find all the cables that you want to be in a specific place, whether it's hanging from a truss, or crossing a walkway, or a place behind your stage where there's going to be a lot of foot traffic. You want to gaff tape the cables down, so that way there's no tripping hazard, or there's no chance of somebody pulling that cable with their foot and pulling maybe a power cable out of the wall, and now half your stage doesn't have power. It doesn't matter what kind of cable it is. We do not want it pulled from where it's plugged into. That's a no-no, especially if you have cables maybe running from your drum mics. No, Lord knows we don't want the cable pulled and our overhead comes down and pulls down a cymbal. I mean, it can be catastrophic there. So we gaff tape them down for the person's safety as well as the safety of our equipment. Also, gaff taping power cables and DMX to your truss. Maybe you have some truss set up on stage, or maybe you have some sort of stage design where lights are hanging off of. Take your cables, gather them together, and hide them, or put them nice and neatly in a place to where it looks like you care and the cables aren't sticking out everywhere and just cause an eyesore. This will really clean up your stage. If you do this all across your stage, it'll look so good and you'll be glad you did. And of course, you can redo it over time because it's not permanent. You're not drilling holes in your stage and running cables underneath. You're just gaff taping them down or zip tying them or Velcroing them down. It's that simple. It's that simple. So do this, make this a regular habit every time you change the position of an instrument or position of a light. Tape your cables down and get your cables in a place where you like them and they're hidden, they're out of the way. We don't want to see them. We want to make it look like it's wireless, right? So tip number 3, remove your music stand. Of course, removing the music stands, I talked about this in another video. I'll link it below if you want to go watch that. But of course, it'll clean up your stage if you remove them. You have more worship engagement with your musicians. Your musicians are gonna be able to interact with each other a lot better when they're not buried into a music stand. This also promotes preparation and excellence. So when your team knows that there's not gonna be a music stand in front of them, they have to prepare. They have to be ready for the music and know their parts. And of course, like I said in the other video, you have to set this up maybe over multiple weeks, especially if a lot of your musicians are the same people week to week. You say, look, for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to take away one song at a time from the music stand. So that way you start to memorize songs, and ultimately we can remove the music stand to have a much cleaner stage and promote worship engagement, promote excellence and preparation. And it's going to be a pretty tough conversation if right now you currently have 15 music stands on your stage, or for us it'd be probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 5 or 6 music stands all across the front. Especially now, if you're using music stands for your vocals, that can even clutter it up even so much more, and it just looks like a wall of aluminum across the front of your stage. We don't really want that. It's just not a great look. It looks so much better. It looks like you're so much more engaged with the congregation when you don't have that big thing in front of you. Now, I know there are a lot of professional stages that use music stands, and that's great. I'm not totally against them. I'm just saying for worship, especially for the type of music that we do, not all of it is extremely hard, and not all of it needs sheet music. Even some of the extremely technical songs, you can for the most part memorize them. You can, I know you can. Remove those music stands. It's gonna look so much better. You'll be glad you did. I think I took 11 weeks and took away a piece of music every other week, or however many, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But it's gonna make you so much happier when you come in and you see a nice clean stage with no music stands and everybody knows their music. For the most part. I know I've rambled on. 3 tips. I want to give them to you one more time just as a follow-up. Clean up that keyboard stand. You can use these Velcro ties. I've been playing with it the whole time. You can probably hear it in the audio. Number 2, gaff tape your cables on your stage and behind your stage, and tie the cables to whatever that hides them. We don't want to see them. And number 3, remove your music stands. Man, if you do all 3 of these things, your stage is gonna look incredible. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Get rid of those music stands and clean up those stages. That's gonna be your goal this week. And remember, great worship leaders are always learning. Subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you next time.